Hello, thank you for listening. My name is Tanaka Kenji, and I want to tell you a story from a time when I was just 23 years old. A time when my world was very, very small, and yet contained everything I believed to be true. Before the war, my world smelled of cutting oil and hot metal. It was a world of order. I was a factory worker in Nagoya. My hands knew the language of machinery, the precise tolerance of a piston ring, the satisfying finality of a tightened bolt. I believed the world was a great machine. Every person, every part had a function. We were the gears, strong and reliable. The nation was the engine, powerful and enduring. And the emperor was the divine spark that gave it life. This was not a philosophy. It was a physical truth, as real as the lathe I operated. A machine built by a god could not fail. The war was just a matter of proving its superior design. So when they put me in a submarine, the I-58, it felt right. I was a gear in a smaller, deadlier machine, sealed away from the sun, deep in the belly of the Pacific. My job was the torpedoes. My world became pressure gauges, gyroscopes, and the compressed air that would deliver our divine will. And for a long time, the machine worked exactly as it was designed. People ask what it was like to achieve such a victory so late in the war. They imagine a great celebration. But the truth is, victory, when it came, was just another sequence of mechanical operations. It began, as it always did, with a change in the rhythm of the world. The air inside the I-58 was a thick soup. You could taste the diesel fuel, the sourness of unwashed bodies packed together for weeks, the faint, metallic tang of recycled oxygen. It was the air of our world. We moved through the Pacific like a ghost, a steel shard in the deep, dreaming of home. My home, Nagoya, I tried not to picture it as it was now, a landscape of charcoal and ash from the B-29s. I pictured the factory, the scream of the whistles, the rhythmic clang of the drop forge, the smell of cherry blossoms carried on the spring breeze over the factory walls. That was my gear turning in its proper place. That was the memory that kept the pressure from crushing me. Then the call came. Hyoki, target. The word cut through the stale air like a clean blade. The lazy, rocking rhythm of the patrol stopped. The machine inside the machine woke up. Down in the torpedo room, my world shrank to the 6 steel fish in their tubes. My special type chitin pilots, my comrades, were already sealed in their own manned torpedoes, ready to become the divine wind. But the Captain Hashimoto chose a conventional spread. It was my turn. The orders came down, a series of numbers and commands. Bearing, speed, depth. My hands moved without thought. They knew this dance. Open the outer doors, flood the tubes. Check the pressure. The hiss of the water was a familiar whisper. The only sound was the hum of the gyroscope spinning up inside the torpedoes, a high, thin whine like a trapped insect. My heart beat in time with the thrum of the electric motors that pushed us silently through the dark water. I felt the deck plates vibrate under my feet. Everything was cold, damp steel and focus. There was no emperor here, no family, no burning city. There was only the calculation, a problem of physics and engineering to be solved. Hasha, fire. The submarine shuddered. A deep, resonant asterisk thump that you felt in your teeth. 1, pause, another asterisk thump, asterisk, 2, all the way to 6, a hollow rush of air and water, and then they were gone. 6 pieces of our spirit, our engineering, our will, sent out into the black, and then silence. The most absolute silence a man can know. The motors were off. We were adrift, a dead thing in the water, listening. Every man held his breath, 100 lungs straining in the crushed, foul air. The only sound was the drip of condensation on a pipe and the frantic pounding in my own ears. It was an eternity that lasted maybe 2 minutes. Then it came. Not a sharp crack, but a deep, resonant asterisk thud. A vibration that came through the hull, through the water, and into the bones of every man aboard. It was the sound of our machine connecting with theirs. Another asterisk thud, asterisk, closer. The men let out a sharp, collective hiss of breath. A muffled cheer started, but it was quickly silenced. We were still hunting, and we were still being hunted. Through the periscope, the reports came down. A pillar of flame on the horizon, an orange flower blooming in the midnight sea. We had done it. We had struck a blow. A cruiser, they said, the USS Indianapolis, a major warship. In the cramped, stinking confines of the I-58, a wave of relief, of fierce, desperate pride washed over us. For a moment, the ash of Nagoya was forgotten. The endless, grinding attrition of the war was forgotten. We had proven the machine still worked. Our spirit was still sharp. We were still divine. We slipped away, back into the silent dark, leaving the burning ship to its fate. In the weeks that followed, that victory was a warm coal we held in our chests. We were isolated, cut off from the world, but we had our truth. We were winning. This was the turning point. Any day now the orders would come for the final, glorious battle to defend the homeland. We oiled the torpedoes. We drilled. We waited, our faith forged anew in that pillar of fire. The machine was working. The machine was perfect. Then the new orders came, not to attack, but to return to Kure. There was confusion. Whispers slithered through the compartments. Why would we retreat after such a victory? The engine of war does not run in reverse. It made no sense. But an order is an order. The machine follows its commands. We turned for home, our minds filled with questions that we dared not ask aloud. It was August 15th. We were still at sea, surfaced to recharge the batteries under a gray, indifferent sky. The radio operator, a boy named Ito with perpetually worried eyes, called for the officers. He had a broadcast from the Emperor himself. We all gathered. Every man who could be spared from his post crowded into the control room. We pressed close, the air thick with anticipation. This was it, the call to defend the sacred shores, the final command. The air crackled with static, and then a voice. High-pitched, formal, a voice none of us had ever heard before. It felt alien, distant, the voice of a god speaking through a crude human machine. He did not speak of victory. He did not speak of honor in battle. He spoke of a new and most cruel bomb. He spoke of the devastation of the enemy. And then he spoke words that my mind refused to assemble into a coherent thought. Endure the unendurable and suffer what is insufferable. The broadcast ended. The static returned, a meaningless hiss. We stood there, frozen, looking at each other, looking at the officers whose faces were pale, unreadable masks. What did it mean? What were we to endure? A senior officer, his voice thin and cracking, explained it to us. The war was over. We had surrendered. The word was a malfunction, a broken gear. It did not fit in the machine. I looked at my hands, the hands that had launched the torpedoes that had sunk the Indianapolis, hands that had done their duty perfectly. I felt the deep thrum of our own diesel engines, still running perfectly. The submarine was sound. The torpedoes were ready. The crew was willing. All the parts were in perfect working order. But the command from the divine spark itself was to stop. In that moment, the I-58, my steel sanctuary, my perfect weapon, became a coffin. My greatest fear, being trapped at the bottom of the sea, came true. But we were not at the bottom. We were on the surface under an open sky. And we were trapped not by water pressure, but by a reality I could not comprehend. The air in my lungs felt stolen. The sounds of the submarine, the familiar hums and clicks, sounded like the death rattle of our entire world. We had followed the plans. We had done our duty. We had won a great victory. And it meant nothing. The machine had been declared obsolete by its own creator. That was the true sinking. Not the Indianapolis in a blaze of glory, but the I-58 in the crushing, absolute silence that followed the voice of a god admitting defeat. I spent the rest of my life building things. After I returned to what was left of Nagoya, I went back to the factories. I helped build the cars, the electronics, the new Japan. I put my hands to work fixing machines. But I never again believed that everything could be fixed. Some things, some beliefs, some nations, they don't just break. They shatter in a way that leaves no blueprints for how to put them back together. You can only sweep up the pieces and try to build something new from the wreckage, something smaller, something that runs on a different kind of power. You mourn the grand machine you were supposed to be a part of. The hardest lesson is this. You can perform your function perfectly. You can follow every order and turn every gear exactly as you are meant to, and still find yourself on the wrong side of history. You discover that the machine you gave your life to was not divine at all. It was just a machine, and it was pointed in the wrong direction. Then in the silence, you are left with only your hands and the terrifying choice of what to build next. This memory is a piece of shrapnel I carry. It's heavy. Help me carry it. Subscribe and ensure these stories are never left to rust in silence.